me begin by saying that I broadly share the view presented by Professor Dan Hamilton in his report about the formidable challenges that Europe is currently facing. As the rest of the world, developed world, Europe is struggling to recover from the worst economic slump since the 1930s. And the legacy of high public debt, also private but especially public debt, high unemployment and relatively low investment act as a drag on growth, and that may happen still for years to come. Moreover, over the past year or so, tensions in the European sovereign debt market have, as we know, fueled exceptional uncertainty and led to high interest rates for several member states of the European Union. On the other hand, at the same time, unprecedented measures have been taken by Europe to contain the financial market turbulence. While they have been effective in the sense of preventing financial chaos and even worse consequences, there has been no Lehman type of catastrophe on the European soil. Certainly more needs to be done, especially in the field of stimulating, lifting our growth potential. In addition to making sure that our financial backstops are strong enough for all eventualities, the policy response has to tackle the root causes of the current crisis. Therefore, crisis management simply cannot be separated from addressing the key structural weaknesses of the European economy, the scale of which has been starkly revealed by the financial shock which originated not in Europe but in the United States. The problems are well known: lack of fiscal prudence in good times in many member states, labor market practices and tax and benefit systems that are unconducive to high rates of employment and shift reallocation of labor in the face of shocks, and slow-moving and uncompetitive innovation system, as well as a still fragmented internal market. These are, to my mind, very well described in the study of Professor Hamilton. To understand the European challenges, it is important to note that the issue is not just, sometimes not at all, the average performance, but the great diversity. For instance, as a whole, EU public finances are in a better shape than those of the US. This holds whether one uses general government deficit or debt as a measure. The specific EU problem is that in some countries public finances are in a really bad shape, and this has spilled over to other countries in different ways, both through the contagion effect in the sovereign debt market and through chain reactions in the financial system. To improve European competitiveness, by which I mean the capacity to create jobs and increase productivity, not simply low unit labor costs, one needs to do different things in different member states. However, at the same time, we must coordinate these actions in order to obtain the full benefits of synergies, and therefore policy coordination is always a key element of European competitiveness policy, unlike, for instance, in the United States. Or at least it is a much more serious challenge in Europe than in the United States. We have not had Alexander Hamilton in Europe we don't have a federal economic government. We have 27 member states in the Union, or 17 in the euro area, and it always takes quite a few batteries of cell phones or quite some footwork in order to get together decisions at the level of the whole Union. Ladies and gentlemen, I would claim that the crisis has brought about a sea change in European economic policy. First, there is a much broader understanding and acceptance of that major reforms, many of which are painful in the short term, needs to be taken for the sake of medium to long-term economic development. Secondly, the willingness to coordinate economic policies is much higher, much more developed than ever before in Europe. The drastic fiscal and structural policy measures which have been taken by Greece, Ireland, Spain, witness of the former, many countries are encouraged by the success of the German reforms over the past decade, the fruits of which are now clearly visible with a strong rebound. I'm not mainly referring to unit labor costs, but rather to the labor market reforms and the investment on innovation and long-term economic development. The legislative package for reinforced economic governance proposed by the Commission, which is currently under discussion in the European Parliament and in the Council, is very concrete evidence of the changed attitudes towards policy coordination and economic governance in Europe. In fact, we have already introduced the new architecture in the form of we call the European semester, which was launched by the Commission's annual growth survey on the 12th of January, just 1 month ago. The proposals in the growth survey form the basis for the European Council recommendations to Member States in March. And in fact, last Friday's European Council, which I'm sure you all followed, last Friday's European Council gave a clear and strong support to complete the legislative package by summer, to conduct ambitious bank stress tests in the course of spring, and to strengthen the existing financial backstop, the European Financial Stability Facility. The Treaty on European Union and the new system of reinforced economic governance provide the right and appropriate framework for a truly European response to this current still ongoing crisis, and can enable members of the euro area to go further on some issues to improve competitiveness if they so wish. The policy goals discussed in this context, in the context of the so-called Competitiveness Pact, are broadly in line with the Commission's proposals in the growth survey, which constitutes the blueprint for fiscal consolidation, structural reform, and other growth-enhancing measures, while the European semester provides the framework for this very important work. All this shows that a momentum is indeed building up for a step change in European policy making towards stronger promotion of sustainable growth and job creation. But to ensure that concrete actions follow on a broad basis, we must find an inclusive way of taking the process forward so that the Member States are really feeling ownership of this process. What do we propose in the growth survey? What is the substance of these proposals. I want to give you a few examples so that we can maybe in the discussion that follows touch some of these. The growth survey provides the Commission's assessment of the economic challenges, takes stock of the progress made in implementing the Europe 2020 growth strategy, and spells out the priorities for urgent policy action. This document is written in a very blunt language, maybe not always characteristic to our documents, and brings together, in fact, 10 priority actions covering broadly 3 main areas. First, rigorous fiscal consolidation to enhance macroeconomic stability. Second, labour market reforms for higher employment. And third, structural reforms to enhance sustainable growth. As Professor Hamilton says, the best way to empower people is to help them remain active. I fully agree, and therefore in our Europe 2020 strategy, 2 key policy initiatives pursue precisely that goal: youth on the move and the agenda for new skills and jobs. And they are complemented by the digital agenda for Europe to help develop Europe's knowledge society. As you well know, a skilled workforce is indeed essential for an innovative economy. The EU has agreed on an employment rate target of 75% by 2020. To reach that target, actions to upgrade the skills of the workforce and eliminate the skill mismatches between supply and demand will have to be intensified. Also, cooperation between higher education and businesses is a necessity, which is quite advanced in some member states, usually those who have a higher propensity to innovation, while in some other member states it is clearly less developed and there is much still to do. We also need significant structural reforms that will make work more attractive. In our growth survey, we identify several areas for urgent action, such as more employment-friendly tax and benefit systems, pension reforms conducive to later effective retirement, better designed unemployment benefit and training schemes, as well as more balanced employment protection legislation. On innovation, we see that it is essential to emphasize its importance for Europe to establish a sustainable economic recovery and develop our longer-term competitiveness. And to that end, the Innovation Union, which we are proposing, focuses on increasing our investment to levels achieved by other leading economies, giving entrepreneurs better incentives to bring ideas to the market, and eliminating the fragmentation and duplication of national research systems, which is one of the handicaps of the European innovation system. And as we live in a world of ever scarcer natural resources with peak oil and perhaps peak water, I do completely agree that the European Union should lead the global transition to a resource-efficient economy, which is in fact a great opportunity for Europe. And in this sense, you know that the European Union has set itself targets for greenhouse gas reductions by 2020, which are among the most ambitious in the world. And in this context, I would like to note that Europe relies very much on a price mechanism to deliver efficient outcomes. Emission trading and higher taxes on fossil fuels are central elements of the European approach. As regards structural reforms, tapping the full potential of the single market is one of the core priorities of Europe 2020. We see that deepening the single market will have strong evidence-based economic underpinnings, and we have to focus on a limited number of actions, including full implementation of the Services Directive, completing a European framework for intellectual property, and rapid and interoperable standard setting, including, of course, the information and communication technologies.